So today we're going to dive into something pretty amazing, the incredible variety in how our brains are wired. We'll explore why that variety isn't just normal, but actually essential. Yeah, we're talking all about neurodiversity.
So let me just kick things off with a big question for you. We throw around the idea of a normal brain all the time, right? But what if that whole concept is a myth? What if there's actually no such thing as a standard issue brain?
The truth is, every single brain on this planet is unique. It's kind of like a fingerprint, no two are the same. Each one has its own special wiring, which leads to this huge, beautiful spectrum of how we all think, how we learn, and how we see the world. All right, let's get into it. The core idea here is a really powerful shift in thinking. It's about moving away from seeing different ways of thinking as a deficit and starting to see them for what they are, just a difference. So this term, neurodiversity, it actually came from a sociologist named Judy Singer way back in 1998. And what's key here is that it's not a medical diagnosis. It's a social concept. It's a way of looking at things like ADHD or autism, not as problems that need to be fixed, but as totally natural, normal variations of being human. Okay, so this leads us to a couple of really important terms. First, you have neurotypical. That's just the word for brains that work in ways our society generally considers standard. And then you have neurodivergent, which describes brains that are wired to learn and process things differently. And look, just changing the words we use is huge. It takes us out of that normal versus abnormal mindset and puts us in a much healthier place of just different. And we're not talking about some tiny niche group of people here. The scale of neurodiversity is way bigger than you might think. Honestly, it's a fundamental part of what makes us human. Just let that number sink in for a minute. Up to 20%. That's 1 in every 5 people on the planet. Think about that. In your office, in your school, in your friend group, you are surrounded by neurodivergent minds. It's a fact. And it's not just one thing, right? There's a ton of diversity within neurodiversity itself. It's a whole spectrum. If we look at these estimates from the UK, for instance, you see dyslexia is pretty common, around 10% of people. ADHD is right up there too, at about 8%. It's a really wide range. So what's it actually like to be neurodivergent? Well, it's definitely not as simple as just having deficits. It's way more interesting than that. It's about having this unique mix of incredible strengths and, yes, some very real challenges. Let's take autism, for example. Someone who's autistic might have this almost superhuman ability to focus deeply on something, see patterns no one else does, and think in really innovative ways. But on the flip side, they might find things like sensory overload or figuring out unwritten social rules to be a real challenge. And it's a similar kind of story with ADHD. You might have someone who is just a creativity machine, a lightning-fast problem solver who can hyper-focus like a laser on things they love. At the same time, yeah, keeping things organized or sticking with a boring routine task, that can be tough. And look at dyslexia. A brain that might have a tough time with reading and writing can often be absolutely brilliant at things like 3D thinking and creative, outside-the-box problem solving. See what I mean? It's not a deficit, it's just a different kind of wiring with its own unique set of superpowers. But here's the thing. With all these amazing strengths, you'd think the professional world would be clamoring for this kind of talent. Instead, what we find is this huge, invisible wall that keeps so many brilliant people out. I mean, look at these numbers. They're just shocking. In the UK, only about 22% of autistic adults have a job. Compare that to 81% for non-disabled people. It's even less than half the rate for all disabled people combined. That is an unbelievable waste of talent and potential. It's just wrong. So you gotta ask, why is this happening? Well, a huge piece of the puzzle is our hiring process. Think about it. The standard job interview is often a test of things like making eye contact and reading subtle social cues, things that have nothing to do with the actual job. So we end up weeding out amazing candidates without ever even seeing what they can do. But what if companies actually got smart about this? What happens when they stop trying to filter people out and start looking for ways to bring this talent in? Well, when they do that, the results are incredible, absolutely transformative. Okay, get this. JP Morgan Chase has a program called Autism at Work, and they found that when they put their autistic employees in the right roles, jobs that need insane focus and pattern spotting skills, they weren't just a little better. They were between 90 and 140% more productive than their colleagues. That's not a typo. It's a game changer. And it's not just about finding individual superstars either. It's about teams. Hewlett-Packard Enterprise found that their teams with neurodivergent members were 30% more productive in software testing. It makes perfect sense, right? You bring in different ways of thinking, you get better solutions, and you catch more errors. So here's the bottom line. This isn't just about being nice or doing the right thing. The data is crystal clear. Embracing neurodiversity is a massive competitive advantage. We're talking higher revenues, double the net income, bigger profit margins. It's not charity, it's just plain smart business. Okay, so this brings it back to us. What can we actually do? As a coworker, a manager, or even just a friend, how do we help build a world that's more inclusive for all these different kinds of minds? The good news is, it's not as hard as you might think. It really boils down to a few simple but powerful steps. Number 1, just listen. Really listen to what neurodivergent people say about their own experiences. 2, be clear. Use direct language. 3, drop the labels. Things like high functioning can actually be pretty dismissive. And finally, number 4, make accommodations normal. Things like flexible hours or noise-canceling headphones shouldn't be a big deal. They should just be part of the toolkit for everyone. And that really leads us to the final and maybe most important idea. For so long, all the pressure has been on neurodivergent people to change, to hide parts of themselves, to somehow fit into a world that wasn't built for them. But what if we flipped that? What if the goal isn't to make people fit the world, but to build a world that fits all of us? A world where every single kind of mind has a place to not just get by, but to truly thrive.
This presentation was inspired by research and expert advice from several health and education organizations. You can find the links to the original sources in the video description below. We hope this information helps you create a more inclusive environment and supports the unique strengths of every person in your class or workplace.